I think somebody's ability to stay focused and get their team to stay focused and use certain points to express that, to remind people how serious you take it, and then to come to every meeting with that one-page plan and your KPIs so you can see like, hey, how are we tracking? How are we based on it? And reminding them of the main focus so everyone's clear on it. I think that is a really, really important operating trait for most leaders.
Mike Arce, what's up, buddy?
What's up, Rick?
Good to see you, my friend. Little Bird told me that you grand opened or had a grand opening party for your first, maybe second, but first alloy in your backyard, which is Scottsdale. Is that true?
Yep. My partner, Laurel Roach, and I opened up 2 days ago on Saturday. It was great.
Yeah, it looked a lot of fun. We were talking about it in the office. That we got training week, so there's 7 clubs here getting trained up, as you guys have been, and everybody understands what that looks like. But we were talking to them about things like grand opening parties and all the grassroots marketing, and Laurel's really good at that, like getting out in the community, getting to know people. Yeah, super influential, and you are as well. So it's really fun to see all just you guys and your general sort of affect, if you will, on the whole market out there. Like all these people came in to support you guys. It's just good to see. It just speaks volumes about you guys as individuals. So it's always encouraging to see that. So we appreciate you guys for sure.
Yeah, no, it was great. Laurel did such an incredible job, like she does with building up referral partnerships. So we had a lot of businesses that came down, Stretch Labs and a bunch of other health related companies. And then, we had a lot of friends and family that came down as well. It was great to see. I made a post. I didn't really have a lot of time to individually invite really anybody except for my mom and dad. I think they got a personal invite. And just to see like random faces walk in the door, and I'm like, oh wow. And whenever you get, you have different circles of friends, and when you see friends from all different circles be in the same room, it's kind of cool, and it was a fun time.
Yeah, I recognize some faces and others I hadn't, but it just looked like a really supportive, like fun. That's what it's supposed to be, right? So props to you guys. Hey, before we dig in today on who you are and what the heck you're doing on the podcast, did you bring a dad joke?
Oh, we're kicking off with a dad joke.
It's always kickoff. I mean, sometimes we forget we do it at the end, but like we can't bury the lead, man. It's a dad joke podcast. Let's go with a little bit of stuff about franchising.
I think I just posted one. Like right before this podcast on Instagram, and it was my 2 rules of success. You want to know what they are?
Of course.
Well, rule number 1 is you never tell everything that you know.
Yeah, and
right.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the joke.
No, I get it, man. I get it. I think it's great. What kind of phone do prisoners make calls on?
Cell phone.
Oh, dude, come on. That's so easy. Good job, though. Good job being. I mean, you're a dad. How many kids? You have 3, right? 3 kids.
4 kids. 4 kids.
I thought it might be 4, but all right. So 4 kids. Like you're in the throes of it. All different ages. All ranges, teenagers and down. So like, you are living a dad joke every day. So props to you for knowing the answer. Look, I want to dig into your background. You're a really impressive guy. I've known you for years from the industry. Many of our listeners will not. Of course, it's important for me to say that you're a multi-unit alloy franchisee, but you're so much more than that, getting to that decision. So can you just, backtrack? What's your background? How did you get in the fitness space? How did that evolve? Why did you create Loud Rumor? What is Loud Rumor? Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, so I was in the fitness industry for almost a decade. Started when I was really about 19, and I started actually coaching in a martial arts studio. I was in martial arts for a while. I actually was 2-time Arizona State champ. I competed in the Grand Canyon State Games in Vegas. And my uncle, who was my trainer, was 2-time world champ, 7-time state champ. And so I got to learn a lot from him. And then, that was the first experience I had with like coaching people, right? And in something with health and wellness, or in anything really. And so I don't know. Well, I guess it began when I was now starting to fight people that were big. Like all of a sudden, that when you go from 19 to 20 to 21, like men start forming, and I was still very, very thin. And so I switched my major at the time from business for a semester. I noticed they had a personal training certification, and it was like a whole semester. It was like 18 credits. And I was like, all right, well, I can't afford a trainer, but if I can be a trainer, well, then I can afford myself. So I'll just be a trainer. And the last part of that curriculum, you had to take on a client for like 3 weeks and you had to like do stuff based on whatever the curriculum was. So I took on somebody and I actually really enjoyed feeling smart. Like I felt like I knew so much more than this person. And it was because of what I learned over that time. And I was genuinely interested in health and fitness and nutrition and all that. And so I thought it was fun. I decided to stop working at a restaurant, which is where I was working at the time, and get a job at LA Fitness and got a job as couldn't get a job as a trainer because you had to have a certain certification. So I got a job as a person that sold training. And within the first full month of me selling training, I actually broke the record for sales. And and it was by doing something very different than what everybody else was doing. I don't know where I learned, but I know I learned it. And it was this important idea of like, if everyone looks like they're doing this, and probably don't do that. And so everyone was cold calling their members from this book. And I just took a totally different approach from it. It made a lot of sales. And then from there, I came up with another idea, broke that record. And then I, little by little, started kind of just going from to different clubs and doing the same. And then I started my own personal training company. And then little by little, the road led down to me starting a company called Loud Rumor. And it wasn't really niche to fitness at the time. We were working with everybody, doctors, lawyers, it didn't really matter. But we got stuck at a certain point. We couldn't break past 42,000 monthly revenue. And we were just doing marketing. And so started reading books. And I had a mentor of mine give me the book Built to Sell and paired it with some lessons in it and experience share. And so I niched to fitness because it was something I had a passion in already. I always wanted to go back to. I knew I did. I just didn't know how or when. And next thing you know, we went from 42,000 to, 1.4 million in a month. And it was like, okay, well, we got something here. And, we've made a lot of changes to the program over time. And we're very excited about where we ultimately landed. I know we're not done yet. We've got a lot of things that we're excited to be doing in the future. But where we're currently at now, super proud. The vision is we are where the best gyms go to grow. So, when we first started this thing, we had, maybe a couple of people that were seven-figure gym owners. And, now it's like damn near 30% of our gyms are seven-figure earners. And a lot of them are close to it, but like similar to an alloy model, you can't get to seven figures,
Right.
but you're not worried about it because the margins are going to be greater than what some people do with seven figures. So we're very proud of the base of members that we're working with right now. We've gotten very careful as to who we work with. You're either somebody that's really great at what you do or somebody that's completely committed to being really great at what you do. And if that's the case, then we bring you on board and we do some wonderful things together.
How would you describe Loud Rumor if I ask, what is that? Maybe we're on an elevator, right? Elevator pitch. Like, what's Loud Rumor? Would you call it a mastermind? Would you call it a coaching group? How do you refer to it?
I don't know if I would give it a label because I don't know if there's anything that exists like it. So if I say mastermind, it can lead you in one direction. If I say coaching, it leads you in one direction. Really what we do is we help gyms, let me say this, we work with some of the most intelligent and hardworking gym owners on the planet, period. And we work with them on helping them get more members, more money, more minutes. Those are the three things. If everybody can have more of any one of those things, it'd be great. More of all three, it's a trifecta. We're living in a great place. So there are mastermind elements, of course, because I feel like, getting experience share from other people that are fighting the same battle and have done things that you haven't done, it not only teaches you things, but it could also give validation and confidence to things that you thought about doing and just didn't fully pull the trigger, go all in on it. And so that's really, really great. So the mastermind absolutely exists. I mean, we've had people that have flown to each other's studios, that have gone to each other's weddings, that have vacation together. Like that's happening. And that's incredible because, entrepreneurship can be a lonely place. And so this kind of helps with that. But then there are coaching elements too. So we have a very strategic set of systems that we work with. And regardless of what business you have, that's why it's important to us because that this piece is the way I'm about to tell it. We work with so many franchises. And every franchise is very particular about how things are done. And the one thing I believe in is if you invest in a franchise, you don't want to do things that the franchise doesn't want you to do. Like even with with us, Rick, right? Like there's been a couple times I've called you and I was like, hey man, I'm thinking about doing this. I just want to make sure you're good with it and aligns with your brand. Right. Like it hasn't, I don't care if it's been successful in other gyms. It doesn't matter to me. At the end of the day, is this what's in Rick's vision? Because if it doesn't match or align with his vision, I'm just going to mess it up. Right. I'm going to be that guy selling tacos at McDonald's. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so the things that we work on would be applicable, period. Like in business. Yeah, Rick, if you started a dental franchise, you'd be like, yeah, these are great principles. I like these, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of coaching elements that my coaches are very clear on. And we have structures to our calls and how we do things. Today we had a great role-playing session. People that are generating 5 referrals on average from every sale that they make. So they get a new member, they get 5 referrals on average from every one of them, right? That's what we role play today on how to actually get that done, like some of the members that were examples today. So there's that. And then we have events, we have conferences where I think it's just a whole deeper level of learning. And then we work with the managers. That's something that's new that I don't think you know. We created a program called Studio Manager Plus. And what we've learned is a lot of businesses, especially in the franchise world, they didn't get involved to run a business. They got involved to own a business that cash flows. And so maybe they don't have that wire in them or they don't want to be that person. But if you have a really good manager and you know how to lead that person, man, that manager can make a world of a difference. So we've actually created similar trainings and accountability systems and structures for managers to be successful. And we've had managers that were on the verge of getting fired, get a promotion due to their success after being in the program for just a few months. So Loud Rumors, everything we build is how do we help you get more members, more money, more minutes?
Yeah, love it. And just having known you before we even came to franchising, I've been speaking, I've known you for, geez, I don't know, it's going to be 10 years at least now, and have spoken at some of your conferences and been, bar none, like nobody puts on a show like Mike Arce. That's just a fact in the industry. So anytime you ask me to speak, I'm like, yes, because it's always like amazing, top notch, right? Like you don't do anything that's not amazing. And same thing, like the community that you built, interacting with some of the folks in there. Yeah, man, it's what it's supposed to be, right? And I think to your point, it's a lonely endeavor to be an entrepreneur. And though you have the support of the franchise, I think some franchises, not all are created equal. And I think for some, it's needed to have this additional outlet. And sometimes, as you know, Mike, they're not in a derogatory way, but you develop this sort of parent-child relationship with franchisees because they're trying to stretch their wings and do their thing. We're trying to like keep some guardrails up while also letting them stretch their wings. And it's a dance. It's kind of like being a parent, right? Like your teenagers don't want to hear that they can't go and party with the kid that is wild, whose parents are out of town. It's like, it's just a no. Well, is that going to be popular? No. But believe me, at long term, you're going to look back and be like, that's probably a good decision, right? Same thing for us. So I like the fact that there's resources like you out there that can say the same things or maybe a fresh perspective of the same principles, because there's only certain ways to be successful, right? But I think hearing it from you, it just lands different, right? Whether it's from a colleague or a fellow franchisee of Alloy or a leadership group like yours, I think it's awesome. So props to you, man. I love it. I love it. I think next question for me, and of course it's a loaded question. It's certainly self-serving, but look, man, you've worked with a bunch of franchises. And when people hear that, like Mike works with the franchisees, he has done some work with franchisors as well, but he's working with people who are operators in market, right? They're putting a brand into play in a market, and he's teaching them all kinds of strategies on sales and mindsets and all the other things. So with that breadth of knowledge, I'm honored by this, but I'd love to hear it directly from you. Why Alloy?
Yeah. So I work with 56 different, honestly, it's probably more now because I think we've connected with a few more since I counted out that number. So it's probably around 60, give or take, franchises. And I've gotten to know quite a few of them deeply where I know their numbers. I know their average franchisee revenue. I know their average franchisee profit. I know their average franchisee struggles, their startup costs, all of that. And we work with a lot of really good brands. Like there's some that are just really fun, that make good money. There are some that, are just exciting. They're different. They're unique and all that. And all that's great. But finding that right combination of all of them, like same thing with working out, right? Like there's a lot of fun workouts that you can do, but what's the right combination for you with your schedule, with injuries? Like, how do you find the right thing for you? And for me, what was important was I wanted to get involved in a franchise that I felt would be lower cost. And the reason that was important was because I wanted to partner with people on these locations, and I wanted to create a lower barrier of entry. If I had $1 million startup cost, well, it's going to limit the amount of people I feel like I could partner with. But if I had like a 300,000 or 400,000 or less startup costs, I feel like, it'd be easier to find people that would be willing to partner with me on that. So that was one, low startup cost. The next one is easy to build. So, 1,500 square feet, 1,800 square feet, that's a lot easier than 4,000, 3,000, 2,000 square feet. And also, not having to get a bunch of different equipment and a bunch of different, peak glass and all that stuff. I feel like all that stuff can take time, and there's so many opportunities for delay on things. And so the time to build, ease of build is important. The next thing is the staffing. So the biggest expenses that any fitness studio or gym deals with is taxes and employees, right? Like, so your staff and your taxes. And so I was like, okay, well, if I can limit the amount of people that I have, not only would it, greatly reduce my labor cost, but more than anything, staffing is just a chore on its own. Like if you have to have 8, 12, 15 people, like, that's great. It makes for a really fun team, but it's work. It's definitely more work. And I'm not somebody that's not up for work, but I just didn't have that time to be able to dedicate to a model. And also, if I want to attract a partner, that is another barrier that I can remove, right? Like you're not going to have to find 15 people, like maybe like, small handful of people and we're good to go. Um, I didn't want anything that involved like an intense amount of training. So like unique instructors that have unique sets of skills. And so you can get really smart people and train them really well in here. And I thought that was really great as well. And then margins. Margins were another thing. I wanted to make sure that, I don't need 600 members to make 20 or 30 grand. Like how can I do this with, 150 members or less? That would be ideal. Because what happens is even if you keep your attrition low, let's say you kept your attrition at 5%. Well, 5% is very different of 5% of 150 versus 5% of 600. Once you have a small percentage of a bigger number is still a big number. So if you're
Right.
talking 5% of 600 members, well, you're still losing like 30 members a month, right?
Yeah.
So you got to replace that. That means you have to sell 31 members just to move forward, right? Versus 5% of 150 members. Well, that's like 3 to 4 people, right? Is my math right? I feel like I'm questioning my math.
Like
No, it's like
seven,
seven people.
7.5.
I
Yeah,
did
and a
two
half
and a half.
person.
I did 2.5%. Yeah. So so you're at like 7 to 8. That's a lot different than 30, right? Like selling an eighth person. So I really like that as well. So when I did all the things for my life and what I was looking for, lower startup costs, higher margins, easier to staff, easier to build, easier to attract partners, easier to scale. And so that's why I chose this. If I had a real passion for yoga, which I think is a phenomenal, modality, Pilates, I think is incredible. What I've seen Pilates do for people. I mean, all these things have done great things for people. But if I don't have like a driving passion for it, like some people do, well, then I'm going to go for the things that I have passion for, which for me is the business of the business.
Right. Yeah. Well, look, I've said it a million times, but I'll say it again. Like, you're a really sharp guy. I mean, you're running a group teaching people everything from sales tactics to mindset to everything, finances. I mean, you cover all the aspects, right? Deep dive different conferences with different emphasis. I think it's awesome. So I'll say it again, man. I'm really honored. I don't take it lightly, and I think the world of you and the fact that you chose to spend your hard-earned money on Alloy, I think is it really makes me proud. Put it that way. And so, not in a prideful way, but just shoot, man. It's like I think a ton of you, and if you're willing to invest your dollars in this concept that I've created, it's awesome. So I appreciate you, man. I really do. Listen, you've worked with a bunch of brands, as you mentioned. I can't imagine how many gyms have come through your program. And since you've started, it's got to be in the hundreds, maybe close to 1,000.
Mhm.
What would you say are some traits of the most successful studio owners? And again, not the master franchise. These are the folks that are putting it into play in market. What would you say are the most common attributes that you see?
You say like personality traits, or are you saying like the way they operate?
Could be either. Just any observation that you've made. We could do personality traits and that. Like if you said, "Hey, look, if people can do these 5 things, if they're wired this way, if this is their mindset and this is their work ethic, whatever those things are." I know it's a really broad question because there's a lots of moving parts to this.
I
Okay.
think I think curiosity is super important. I think one of the killers in business is feeling like you know it all. And in this industry, it's tough. If there's one thing any two trainers or fitness pros can agree on, is that the third guy's doing something wrong. So, being able to really be curious and be open to the idea that maybe the way that you're thinking about it isn't the best way. It's funny, like new year business owners, like first year business owners and 18-year-olds have a lot in common, right? Anybody that's new at anything, 18-year-old feels like they know everything, right? And there's nothing that you can teach them. And the new business owner is given advice left and right. Oh, you should quit your job. Screw that. Why work for somebody? Do it your own. Never have a boss. And it's like, once you're 10 years into business or once you're 28 years old, when you're 28, you start really appreciating everything your parents were going through and having empathy and taking those lessons in. I think when you're 10 years into business, you would cringe at the advice you probably gave in year one. So I think if you can have the curiosity of a person in year 10 or 20 in year one, I think that would do a world of difference for you by year two. So curiosity is number one. The next one is not being like super sensitive to criticism. Marcus Aurelius said, I don't know if you ever listen to his stuff. I love
Oh
stoicism, but
yeah, meditations is a must have in the daily stoic and all the things. Yeah.
so one of the things I took away from him was, when receiving criticism, understand that either the other person is right, in which you have no reason to complain, or they're wrong, in which they're just misguided, and it's something that you can help guide them on, right? But that first one is usually the one that like there's something to take away from that. So um, if you can avoid taking things personal and constantly, again, that's probably part of being curious, like being like, okay, what is he seeing here? What could I be doing? Even if I feel like I'm doing the right thing, like maybe I'm doing it wrong, or maybe I could be doing it differently or better. So I think being able to understand that piece of it's important as far as a trait goes, not getting defensive, almost looking for criticism or looking for a perspective, an experience share that you can compare and contrast to what you're currently doing. um, Optimistic. I think you have to be optimistic. I remember when I was broke and I was borrowing money from everywhere I can in order to keep the business going in the early days. I would go to family barbecues and my aunts and my uncles, they'd be like, "Oh my God, you look like you're doing so great. I see you on Facebook. I see you on Instagram," and or whatever they saw me. And I believed that I was doing great. I didn't feel embarrassed. Even though I was getting my ass kicked, in my head, I was becoming. And so I was like, yeah, we've got a couple brands that we're looking at working with. And I wasn't BSing. Like I was really focused in on the opportunities and the potential. Whatever you tend to focus on will enhance. If you're focused on that pain in your elbow, like that pain is just going to kill you all day. Right. And so I think that's another thing is just being optimistic and choosing what you're going to pay attention to, what you're going to focus on. That's a big part of it. So those are some personality traits. I'm sure there's probably a dozen more, but I'll just kind of stop there. Now I'll go into like the way I think people operate and some patterns I've seen with that. Focus is a very big part. I think somebody's ability to focus and maintain focus within the team is very underrated. It's also very rare. So usually it's someone that's easily distracted and somebody that easily distracts the team that more exists than the other. And so a couple things that we believe in and we do with all of our gyms is we have them create a one-page plan. And it's a simple page. We build one out for a year and then we go, okay, well, hey, here's your one-page plan for the year. And there's a structure, like you're filling it in, right? Here's your one-page plan for the year. Okay, great. Now we know that, what do we have to do in Q1 in order to be able to do that for the year? Okay, great. Here's our one-page plan for the quarter. And we may make adjustments to Q2 to make sure we're still on path based on what we do in Q1. And then here's our one-page plan for January, right? And so like, here we go. And if we do everything that's on this page, we should be on pace to do Q1 the way we expected, and then the year as we expected. It's funny, we always complain that, we feel like our people aren't on the same page, but if you want everyone on the same page, first you need the page. And so creating that page that we can bring to our meetings, we do our meetings with our members, like those consults, Yeah, we bring the page, right? Like, let's go over where are we at? Because we might have determined that, and this is another piece to it, your main focus. We might have determined that your main focus was lead generation. Like that was the biggest thing, that if you got this fixed, it would be the more impactful thing than anything else you focused on. We might have focused on that, but then all of a sudden you read a book that somebody told you to read on how to never lose a customer again, and you want to rebuild your entire onboarding process for your gym that's already doing 4% attrition. That it's not like, it wouldn't be that much more impactful to go from 4 to 3. It would be much more
Right.
impactful to go from 15 leads a month to 150. But now we have this thing that we want to do on this. Or we found a new way to increase pricing. And it's like, that's not the issue. So on that one-page plan, one thing we get very clear on is, what is our main focus? So now, Rick, I don't know if you've heard me talk about it before. If not, I'm sure you even know it because you study marketing as well. But marketing has only one purpose. Like I said, there's no other reason marketing exists. If you hire a marketing person on your team and that's their job, they have one purpose. It's to increase revenue. That's it. Everything else you would say, the jelly beans would lead you to that. Oh, it's increased brand awareness. For what? So we can get more leads. For what? So we can get more members. For what? So we can increase revenue. Got it. So like, no matter what you said, it would be to increase revenue. And so that's our job. Well, there's only 3 ways to do it. There's either get more members, increase the revenue per member, or be able to get them to stay longer. That's it. It's one of these 3. And then that second one, increase the revenue per member, there's 3 subways within each one of those. There's either increase your pricing, whether it's on some clients, like buckets of one that are like really, they're underpaying from a long time ago, existing members, future members, whatever, all of them. So there's increasing pricing, there's cross-selling, so ancillary sales, apparel, stuff like that, supplements, whatever. And there's upselling. So you got your 1-time-a-weekers. How can we get them into 2-time-a-week or 3-time-a-week or whatever, right? So those are the ways you can increase revenue. So, okay, cool. We can either get more customers, we can increase the revenue of our customers, or we can keep them longer. Which one of these has the biggest opportunity in our company? So our team sits down and goes, well, what if we fix this and we got this to this level, but these 2 stayed the same? Then what would happen? And we do it with each one of those 3. From that's our impact filter. We say, got it. So it sounds like this is the one. What this means is, any ideas that you hear about, you see, you're exposed to that don't have anything to do with this, we table it or we discredit it completely. That's it. It's like a defensive coach. If you're the coach of a football team and you say, Mike, right now, we've made a decision that our strategy for the year is we're going to be the best defensive team in the league. There will be no team in the league that will have least points scored on them than us. Next year, that's our job. And somewhere, into the season, somebody goes, Coach, I found a way to run some really good routes where we can easily get an extra couple touchdowns a game. How does that help us make sure nobody scores more points on us? Well, it doesn't, but table it. Maybe we'll work on next season. But right now, I really need something else. Hey, Coach, I found a way we can get a couple more sacks a game. Really cool play. Hey, I like that. Let's talk about it, right? That makes more sense. So as a leader, somebody on my team the other day came to me with an idea, and it did not align with it. It was a great idea. It was $40,000 almost instantly in my pocket if I said yes. And I said, no, don't do it. It was Katie that said it, and it was around getting sponsors for GSDCon. And she was like, why? It would be so easy. I go, well, who's going to do it? Who's going to be the main point of contact? She goes, I'll do it. I said, well, how does that align with what we're working on? She goes, well, it doesn't. But, and I go, then we're not going to do it. It's not that it's a bad idea. It's a great idea. I love it. And we may do it next year or next quarter. But for right now, it doesn't align. And I'd rather use whatever energy and attention you're going to put into that. I'd rather you put into some of the things that we've already discussed. Because if I would have taken that $40,000 bait, the message that it sends to my team is, yeah, Michael switch if it comes up and it's a good idea.
Right.
But the message that I delivered instead was, you're not changing Mike's mind. Like, Mike's going to say no to 40 grand if it's not aligned with his focus. So I think somebody's ability to stay focused and get their team to stay focused and use certain points to express that, to remind people how serious you take it, and then to come to every meeting with that one-page plan and your KPIs so you can see like, hey, how are we tracking? How are we based on it? And reminding them of the main focus so everyone's clear on it. I think that is a really, really important operating trait for most leaders. By the way, keep in mind, I don't want to ruin what you're teaching your franchisees. I know a lot of your franchisees listen. Are there any arguments to this? If so, I'm over.
No, absolutely not. Of course, I'm thinking of it through the lens of even corporate, like the franchise company, and it's the same thing. It's like, listen, if it doesn't lead to increased franchisee performance, like really, the what I think the what makes or breaks a franchise, period, is the strength of the franchise partners. You guys, that's it. If you guys are making money and you're happy, sales take care of themselves, right? I mean, I think a third of our licenses awarded a third of our licenses awarded in Q3 of last year were from existing franchisees buying more. I'm like, awesome. That's the best validation that we could get. You don't even really need to sell, because if somebody, we work a lot in the consultant networks, they refer a person who's looking for a business opportunity. If that person comes in, they buy, they stay in touch with them. They're really happy. They bought more, whatever that may be. It's like, that is sales, right? And so for us, it's the same thing. Like, is this going to help, our franchise partners help more people and thus make more money, one and the same, as you know. And if it doesn't, we're not messing with it. Like, just leave it, right? And that's my job, I think, and that's probably your job, the head of your company. But I think when you look at, again, you're saying this is the same trait that you would like to see in an operator. To your point, like, we run EOS, right? We teach it, same kind of idea. Like quarterly objectives, you got to break those down in a to-do list and monthlies, and just reverse engineer your year based on where your gaps are and be honest about where they are. And then just attack those at the expense of everything else, right? And it can be really hard to do that. Especially at your level, and sometimes at mine as well, like, it is really hard to say no to all the opportunities that you get. But man, I've done it for 3 years now, like, absolutely no to anything that's not going to either produce better results for franchisees or get in front of people that would be good potential franchise partners. I just say no. And it's really hard to do that because I enjoy some of the other work. But to your point, what am I telling my team, right? If I go and do a seminar for a completely different brand or something, like, what are we doing? And I wouldn't do it for a franchise brand, but so it's really hard to do, but it is a superpower. It's just really hard to do. And so I think that emotional control that we always talk about is like, listen, get control of yourself. It's easy to chase shiny pennies, man. We all do it. But if you can resist it, you have like a superpower. And, that's why our fifth and most important core value is to keep it simple. So I keep the main thing the main thing. There's so many, so many ways to say that, cliche, but true. So I appreciate it. I think it's right on the nose with what we would coach. And that's why we are working together as franchise partners. Like, I love it, right? I've been a fan of yours from the start. I think you and I align on a lot of those things. I think creatively, you're much better than I am. I love your conferences, and you're super curious, as am I. I mean, you're like a chess master and you play the piano. All this stuff is like self-taught just because you're interested. Like, anybody listening that has a chance to meet Mike somewhere, like, he's literally the most interesting man in the world. You should definitely bend his ear about anything in life because he's the most curious guy I know.
To be fair, for anybody that out there is a real chess master and is thinking they met their match, I am not a chess master. I like chess. I got pretty good at chess.
Just let me have it. Let me say that you beat the Russian guy and the AI bot. Like, you beat them both. Like, what can we say?
I respect chess players and masters so much that I could never like studying some of them and what they do. Like, their brains are just on different levels and patterns. And so I appreciate the recognition of me wanting to be.
How about this? How about the most jacked chess player? Could you be that? Maybe
that might be. I don't know. That could be.
Yeah, I believe it is. Well, look, man, I would love to have you back on to just discuss sales if you're up for it. Because again, and you've got these sort of branches off of these trees of sales that I think is really interesting. And I think most of it is not complicated. It's not easy, right? It's just like fat loss, simple, not easy, but it's not complicated. And I'd love to have you back on and pick your brain about some of those sales tactics. You mentioned before, I think before we even hit record, is that, you're now running an initiative. You just did a sales webinar today, and it was on how to ask for referrals when you sign somebody up. And the average person's now getting 5 referrals for everyone they sign up. It's like amazing, right? Like, just ask, but how do you ask, right? And the self-efficacy of you teaching that would be amazing. So yeah, I'd love to have you back on, man. I really would. And again, I'm super proud that you're part of Alloy. And I do have one final question for you, and I bet you it's going to be really easy for you.
Okay.
If if you were forced to sing karaoke, what would your song be and why?
Oh, well, I actually have thought about this recently, oddly enough.
Why am I not surprised at all? You're like, it's funny you
Okay.
mentioned that. I just did a karaoke championship last week. I'm like, of course you did. The most interesting man in the world did that, of
So,
course.
so my grandfather was really, really, really close to me. He passed away in June of 2021, and that following September, I decided I wanted to go to um, Sicily to go see where he was born and raised and all that. I broke my knee, so I wasn't able to. The surgeon said you're probably not gonna be able to go. Well, I fixed that. I went, and it was great. By the way, can I give a piece of advice for everyone before I give this answer? Is it
Of
really good?
course.
If you ever have to work with a physical therapist, I learned that they give you the bare minimum of things to do because they realize that most people won't even do the bare minimum, so they give you almost nothing. So I asked them one question: if you were LeBron James' therapist, is this what you would put him on? And they go, no, not at all. I go, can I have his plan? And I got ready to go. I was in Sicily walking up and down 100 steps, no problem. Right. So anyway, um, I learned Italian before going there. I was like, while I'm doing rehab, I'll learn Italian. And this way I can speak it when I'm out there. And then I got really into it. So the song I would choose if they had it was La Cafetera. It's a song my grandfather and I used to sing, and it's fun, and it gets the audience involved because you go "Que fa blue blue," and everyone goes "Que fa blue 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 blue." So it's fun. But if they
Right.
don't, but if they don't have that, probably Eminem "Lose Yourself," just because I know that the audience will go with me, and I need someone to carry me.
You do, man. It's all about the audience participation. Like, unless you got the golden pipes, it's really good to sing something everyone knows that they can have a good time with. And of course, Mike Arce would learn Italian while rehabbing his leg and ask if he could get LeBron James's program just so that you could show up in Italy and speak the language and sing songs that you sang with your grandfather. It's such a Mike Arce thing to do. I love it. Well, look, man, I won't keep you. I know you're a busy man. So I appreciate you once again. Where can people find out more about you? Is it loudrumor.com?
Loudrumor.com or Instagram, Mike RC Live.
Awesome. So you guys heard it here. Mike, we're proud to have you in the system. I'd love to have you back on to discuss sales. We can talk about that after. But yeah, man, appreciate you. Keep changing lives out there if you would.
Love it, man. Thank you, sir. You're running a great business. 300 is an awesome achievement. 300 studios. Good work.
That's right. We'll powwow about that Spartan video that we're going to pump out after this, which I didn't think of that. I need a Mike Arce in my life. Anyway, brother, appreciate you, man. Take it easy.
Take care, man.
Cheers.